Yes, hello, welcome to another episode. My name is Dwyan. It's good to see you guys. Great to be here. And let's get straight into it. We're not going to waste any time. Let's do it. This is what we're going to be looking at in this episode. We're going to be looking at racial disparities in America, a census review, meaning we're going to be looking at the 2020 census, the latest census in the United States of America, and we're going to look at racial disparities. Let's look at the racial classifications. So if we go here, we'll see that the census actually has these classifications, as you can see there. White alone, okay, Black or African American alone, American Indian or Alaska Native alone, Asian alone, Native Hawaiian or other Pacific Islander alone, some other race alone, which I'll talk about in a second. And then at the bottom, you got the two or more races, which is the multiracial, right? So people who classified as two races, three races, four races, that's the multiracial yes, the multiracial category. So the some other race alone, well, what is that? Well, those were people who did not want to identify as any race, right? And of course, you're entitled to do that, right? You don't have to say which race you are. You can just say other, I guess, is what they did. But for the purposes of what I'm trying to do today in this episode, we're going to also acknowledge that they are a specific category so that we're going to compare all these different classifications. Now, just to give a little bit of meaning to it, here's the United States population by race, right? So you see there we have about 331 million people in the United States of America, right? And that's the breakdown by race. And as you can see at the bottom there, that multiracial, we talked about two or more races, is 33 million people. 33 million people. And then that what I call the non-identify right here, the 27.5 million people, those are what we saw earlier in the classification, right there, the second from bottom, some other race alone. I just called it non-identifier, right, which is what I have here. So as you can see, it's important to have just a little bit of an understanding of the breakdown by race of the American population. It's better represented here, as you can see in this pie chart. You have the total population of the United States. And as you can see, you have the breakdown that way. Now, the legend that I've used here is very simple. For white, the color is white. For black, the color is black. For brown, for the Hawaiians, red for the Native Indians, yellow or gold, that looks more like gold for the Asian alone. And then right there in the center, you have the purple and the green, right? And the purple is the multiracial, right? Which is what we looked at earlier. Just to quickly go back to the classification, two or more races at the bottom, right? That is the multiracial, and as I said, there's 33 million. And then that non-identified classification, as we talked about, okay, 27 million of them, okay, which represents approximately 8.2 and 10% of the population, okay? So as we go through and we look at some of the metrics, the goal here is that we're going to compare the races, or we're going to compare the different metrics I'm going to be looking at based on race. And we're going to include the multiracial as well as those who did not identify with any race in our comparison to give sort of a full picture of the population. Now, what I want to do real quickly before we look at the different metrics is talk a little bit about the 2020 census and what were sort of the big major findings of the 2020 census, because it is relevant to what we're going to be talking about right now. So if I just switch for a minute over to the census.gov website, you can see here that the 2020 census, the headline here, this headline here, 2020 census shows increase in multiracial population in all ages. So this is one of the big takeaways from the 2020 census, okay, which is that America is becoming more multiracial. And to put it into perspective, so the census is done every 10 years. So in 2010, 9 million people reported as two or more races. 9 million people said they were multiracial in 2010. And as you can see, as I showed you before, if we go to the full PowerPoint here, you'll see that it's better to use this one. You'll see that that number, as you see at the bottom there, increased from 9 million in 2010 to 33 million in 2020, which means that the big takeaway from the 2020 census is that America is becoming more multiracial, okay? And I think that's an important point to mention, an important development, that the country is becoming more multiracial. And I don't have a problem with that, okay? So another important takeaway from it is down here. So first of all, let me just address this. So you can see here that the bulk or the largest increase in the multiracial population is in, as you can see, the bottom here, is in the young. The blue represents under 18 years. If you can see my cursor here, under 18 years, you have the largest increase in the multiracial group there. If we scroll down, we can see this is really important here. This is the differences that we see between 2020 and 2010. And you can see that all except the white alone population, they saw a decrease. As you can see, the white alone population decrease in every age category except 65 years and over. Everyone else, which is what this basically says here, everyone else, all other racial groups saw an uptake, a little increase in their respective populations, pretty much throughout all the different age categories, right? And this is what this shows here. So again, another takeaway from the 2020 census, as we can see there, is this multiracial component, and also the fact that with the exception of white alone, everyone increased, white alone decreased, right? So that's a big takeaway from the 20 census. But anyway, let's get back to our analysis. So we were pretty much here on the, sorry, not that one. We were pretty much back here, okay? So now we're gonna look at different metrics, okay? And we're gonna compare all those different race classifications to those metrics. So we're going to look at marital status. We're going to look at female-headed households. We're going to look at education. We're going to look at unemployment, household income, poverty rates, and finally housing. And we're going to compare all the different races and see where we are. Now, at this channel, let me just say at this juncture, at this channel, what I'm concerned with is Black Americans, right? I'm concerned with this particular racial group in America because I feel that this particular racial group needs attention, and it's urgent, in fact, what is happening in this age group. So I'm kind of inferring or letting you on a little bit into what the 2020 census is going to say with regards to Black people. Okay, so that's an important point that we have to understand. So let's get back to this. So let's look at marital status, okay? And you can see here on marital status that, again, Black Americans are there dead at the bottom. So this is the percentage of the group, of the racial group, that is married, or that was married back in 2020, that said that I'm currently married, which means the rest of the group was either divorced, widowed, separated, or never married. Okay, and as you can see, Blacks are right there at the bottom, 30%. Okay, only 30%. And this has implications for family stability. It has implications for basically the family is the central part of any society. It is the foundation upon every society. Okay, so that's very important. As you can see there, Blacks are dead last at the bottoms. The Native Indians and the Hawaiians are also with them. And then these two groups, the non-identity and the multiracial, you see they're doing slightly better, and then the white and Asian is doing much better. But I must say that these percentages are still pretty low for everyone because, you know, in the 1940s and 50s, the percentages uh, were much higher. You know, of course, that was during the time of segregation and that type of thing. But marriage was definitely an institution, I would say, that was, you know, I think people just believed that once you got married for life, you know, that you had to work on it. There was no way out. I think that's the old school. And then when the new school came in, you know, people feel that no, if you're not happy, if things are not going well, that there's grounds and reasons to divorce, you know. So that's, I think, is an interesting statistic, excuse me. Then we have the family household, right? So this is, remember, this is family households. It's female headed, but it's a family. So it's females with children or females with other females or perhaps a mother or an aunt or something like that. But there's no male or no spouse present, as you can see there, right? And again, Black Americans right there, much higher than any other group of people there, you know, which means that, and this has implications for the family, the nuclear family, which I believe is the core part of any society. And this is a destabilizing, in my opinion. It does create instability within the family structure. And since that is the building block of any society, it is a very serious problem indeed. And as you can see, for Black people, it's 25, just under 25%. 1 in 4 Black people, basically, 1 in 4 households, there's no man, right? There's no male head of house in that situation. Okay, let's move on. We're going to look at education now. Now, this is the education attainment, you know, and the thing about education is that education is the foundation really for individual growth as well as advancing the society, the collective, right? And this is measuring education attainment, bachelor or higher. And as you can see there, Blacks are sort of in the middle there. Asians very high. I mean, you know, almost 2/3 of Asians have a bachelor degree or higher. That's pretty amazing. And then for everybody else, it starts to get low there. You know? But then again, once again, the Blacks are pretty low. They're doing better than the Hawaiians and the Indians, but not by much. But it's, you know, again, this has implications, right? Then we're going to look at unemployment. And as you can see, once again, the Blacks, very high unemployment with the Native Indians and the Native Hawaiians. There's a very high unemployment rate, more than twice those of whites, Asians, and the multiracial, right? And of course, unemployment, I mean, unemployment speaks for itself. You know, it's a very, you know, we have to look at it like it's a direct indicator of basically the economic vitality of a community. It reflects the availability of jobs and the general health of the industries, right? So again, Black people, not Black Americans, not doing so great there. Then we're going to look at household income. And this is the median household income. And the reason why we look at the median household income is because, well, first of all, the median means that there's as many above and as below the amount, right? And it is a more accurate reflection of what a typical household earns, right? And it's better than using other types of averages because, you know, I mean, you know, if you take the Black community, you got the Oprahs, the LeBron James, and all that, and these are outliers, you know, and they have and they can greatly affect the averages. But if you use that median, you kind of account for those outliers. So the median household income is very important. Okay. And again, household income is pivotal for understanding living standards and economic health. And once again, you can see that the Black Americans are right there, dead last, you know, and, you know, other people are doing much better. Of course, the Asians, the whites, the Native Hawaiians, that's interesting there. I was a little surprised to see that doing even more than the whites. But everyone else, basically people of color, still struggling in that regard. Now we look at poverty rates, okay? And again, another um, metric that sort of speaks for itself, but, poverty rates, it's crucial for understanding the economic well-being of a population, you know? And of course, this uh, is the percentage. This is showing the percentage of people within those racial categories who live below the poverty line, right? And as you can see, very high for Black and Native Americans, practically the same there. But again, Black Americans really disproportionately affected there by these huge poverty rates. And the final metric I want to look at the housing. And this is the percentage of the group that are owners, that are homeowners, basically. And as you can see, once again, Black Americans are right there at the bottom. Right there at the bottom. So I think that, a couple of things I want to say. Let me just switch on so you can just... A couple of things that I want to say about this. Let's go to, so I can just keep this here. A couple of things I want to say about this. And the first is that I'm happy that the government does allow us to identify what race we belong to. I mean, look, I know race is a social construct. It really doesn't exist. There's no biological reason for it. We're all one race and everything. But I'm happy that we can go by race, because by doing that, we can see these numbers. And as you can see with Black people, I mean, again, let's just have a recap. We go to marital status. Blacks are the least married. They have the largest amount of no father, no man in the house, family destabilization. They are in the middle of the road here on educational attainment, bachelor or higher, but really, it's still pretty low, especially when you compare it to the people at the higher end of the scale. You go to unemployment, same thing, highest unemployment rate. Black Americans are right there with, again, with the Native Indians. Black Americans are there right there. You have the household income. Black Americans, again, dead last, as we saw earlier. And then same thing with the poverty, high, and same thing with the housing ownership. So the question then becomes, in my opinion, the question then becomes, why is this the case? Why? Why is this the case? Now, there's two roads. It's either because, number one, Black Americans are lazy, they're inferior, they don't pull themselves up by their bootstraps, they're this, they're that, all those stereotypes that we've heard of Black people. And then that would explain why all this is happening. It's their fault, and they just need to do better, right? That's one way. The other road is that maybe there's something systematically wrong here. Maybe there's something systemic that's happening, okay? Now, let's look at it this way. If I was to, let's say an alien was to land here and he was like, hey, tell me about America, and I showed them these statistics, right? And these are just 7 or 8 metrics, very simple metrics that I've picked up from the 20 census. And I said, look, check this out. And then they recognize, that Black group over there, they are, why are they all at the bottom and everything like that? And then if I told that alien, if I introduced him to the history of this country, oh, these people were slaves, they were slaves for 200-300 years, multi-generations, and I think the alien or the foreigner would be like, ah, okay, that explains why this is like this. Without going any further, you would say, oh no, that's the reason why this is like this. And I think that is a logical way that I would think about this quite personally, you know, that there's something systemic, there's something going wrong. Why is it that blacks have to be at the bottom of pretty much every single metric that we're looking at, you know? And again, if we all were to say, oh, let's forget about race and stop focusing on race, and we don't need to have a census based on race and all this type of stuff, you know, then we wouldn't be able to see these disparities. And it would be an even more confusing state as to, well, what's going on here, you know? So I think it's, as I said earlier, it's very good that we have the ability to see to compare the different races, especially given the history of this country. And we can see that there's definitely, in my opinion, something systemic going on here. And this channel, my channel, is going to go deeper into it and to really analyze why, what it is, and most importantly, what we can do about it. Okay? So that is the thing that I think that is very important, okay, that we have to look at. And, you know, why is this happening? Why? So with that, I want to thank you guys very much for listening to this episode. Please don't forget to subscribe to get more of this. This is December 31st right now. So I guess I should say Happy New Year to you guys. And we're just gonna keep going into this, man, diving into this issue and really trying to figure out what's going on here and why we see these type of discrepancies. And this is why race matters. Okay, and I say to black people, don't let people tell us that race doesn't matter and we shouldn't be looking at race, because this is telling us clearly that we need to be looking at race. Okay, we need to be looking at race. There it is on the screen again. We need to be looking at race for these reasons. With that, I would like to say thank you guys for listening. Leave some comments. I'd love to know what you guys think below. And then, hey, I'll see you on the next episode. Take care. Be good.